Hi, I'm BJ, and this is the Arcane Alienist Podcast. Hi, everybody. I've got three recaps. I'm going to recap, bring everybody up to date on my homebrew campaign in the Mythic World of Urd. And then I'm also going to update on the Pathfinder games I've been playing in the last several weeks. Several weeks. It's been a month or more since I put out an episode, so this is long overdue. And then I've got some calls from Daniel Norton to finish out the episode. So let's get into it. This will be a recap for the last two sessions of my homebrewed Old School Essentials game in the Mythic World of Urd, where we're running a modified version of Keep on the Borderlands. Really only modified in the sense that I've kind of created a different plot, so to speak. The caverns and the monsters are pretty much as they come. Changed the lore, giving it into my homebrew setting. But what's happened over the last two sessions is the last session we talked about that I recapped, they had defeated a Minotaur, which was supposed to be guarding all this gunpowder. What they've learned thus far is that there's a cult dedicated to chaos and evil. It has some plot afoot. They ran all the human beings and all the dwarves out of this forested area north of the keep. The goblins were employed in various stages of making gunpowder. And so they'd impressed a bunch of kobolds into service and mining sulfur. So they liberated the kobolds so far. They've cleared out all the goblin faction. And then the last bit was, these bugbears told them that, we dropped the gunpowder off in there. And so when they go in there, it turns out to be a Minotaur's lair. But the cache where the Minotaur should have been guarding these barrels of gunpowder was empty. So outside of the Minotaur's lair, they find some cart tracks. They follow them through the woods to another cave, but the entrance has been collapsed, probably from the inside. It would take them a long time to excavate that, but there's another cave entrance not too far where they can see some foot traffic going back and forth. Something that has happened, happened in several sessions back was, they had defeated all the goblins and cleared this area out of the goblins, and then suddenly all these gnolls sort of swept through the forest and began to, just an entire horde of them, but then it turned towards the keep. And so the keep has been, as far as I know, under siege from gnolls. They've seen gnoll footprints going into this other cave, so they go in there and they do find a lair of gnolls. And so we spent the last two sessions kind of getting just kind of classic dungeon crawl style, going through the gnoll lair from the Caves of Chaos. And so they encounter 4 different rooms. They have some different skirmishes with the gnolls in the setting, the Mythic World of Urd. Gnolls are demon possessed. These animals are possessed of a demon, and it kind of mutates them into these kind of beast men. So they go through the gnolls. They fight. The guards kind of near the entrance, and another tunnel leads them up to another room full of gnolls, where they find the gnolls are guarding kind of their armory. They find a really nice sword, which the fighter Harold picks up and is like, cool. I bet this is magical. It is magical, but not like he hoped, because the next little skirmish they get into, I'm like, so when you draw that sword, it just feels really heavy, kind of leaden in your hands, like it's hard to swing, and it turns out it's a cursed sword. It's cursed with a penalty to hit and damage, but the curse is that whenever he engages in melee, he's compelled to use this as his primary weapon till he can have the curse removed. Despite having that, and then also taking the additional penalty of he has a magical hand axe in his offhand, he still managed to do some damage in melee for the rest of the adventure. And they make it to the chambers of the Gnoll chieftain, and defeat them. The party is taking some beating. It's not like they're standing around unscathed. I think that the clerics have once again expended almost all of their healing ability. So they may, I don't know if they're going to take a rest or if they're going to press on, because in the final, when they fight the Gnoll chieftain, I think they kind of ganged up on him because he was pretty powerful, so they weren't really going to try to negotiate with him or talk to him. They took him down. Anyway, there's one Gnoll remaining at the end that had failed his morale check. And Roderick, who's a paladin in the group, had earlier found a horn that belongs to a demon, which is, I had to retcon on the fly this, because the way I've kind of set up the cosmology here is demons can't physically enter the physical world. They can only possess a living creature, which is where the Gnolls come from, and we've established that that's what ghouls are. It's demons that have taken possession of a corpse, as opposed to zombies, which are just animated corpses, unintelligent animated corpses. So he said, "Well, do you know what this is?" And he gets the demon horn out of his pack, and I'm like, "Oh, what am I going to do?" And I figured, well, okay, I've created a continuity error. I'm going to have to fix it. Fortunately, I've read enough comic books to know how to fix continuity errors. The Gnoll was like, "Oh, what is that? Where did you get that? That can't exist here." And he's like, "Well, it does, and you better talk, or, I can't remember what he said, but it was a credible threat." And I thought, okay, well, here's a paladin. There are two clerics standing behind him. This demon who has possessed an animal and mutated it has been caught. He's watched them just curb stomp a more powerful Gnoll. And now he's got a piece of a demon's body that shouldn't be able to physically exist in this plane of existence. That should be intimidating enough that he's just like, "Yeah, what do you want?" And he's like, "Well, what's your mission here?" And he revealed, "Well, we were summoned here and bound to run through the forest and to besiege the keep and to guard the temple." And they're like, "What temple? There's no temple. We haven't found any temple." He's like, "Well, it's through there," and he points to the wall. It indicates there's a secret passage. And so basically, Sir Roderick commands him to return to the nether realm, and so I just ruled that the Gnoll's eyes roll on the back of its head, and it falls over a lifeless husk. The demon has departed back to its plane of existence. And then they open the secret passage and stare off into the darkness, and that's where we left off. It took 2 sessions to get through it's a 5-room dungeon with a couple of long corridors. I think I got a large group. They were being cautious, really managing their resources, and being more mindful about how they move and when they move and where they move, and really kind of, I think, embracing some of the BX. It's still awkward at times because I think we're using individual initiative instead of side initiative, so that prolongs it a little bit, but it went pretty smoothly. I think one of the other more creative things that happened was the player who's playing Hedamar, is one of the clerics. When they got to the room where the Gnoll chieftain was, they kind of come into the corridor, and there's a door. So they throw open the door, they see the Gnolls, and he pulls it shut. And then he's sort of engaging with I said, make a strength check to see if you can resist the Gnoll flinging it back open. He failed it. The Gnoll opens it, and the Gnoll kind of leans into the door so it can't easily be shut. But they wound the Gnoll, they get the door shut again. And he takes a rope out. So they're there's 2 groups on either side. The party's in the hallway like, well, what are we going to do, And the Gnolls are inside basically preparing for them to open the door again. But he slips a rope through the, it's a medieval door. It doesn't have a doorknob. It's just got a ring, right? So it's the pull ring. He slips a rope through the pull ring so they can kind of pull the door open or pull it back closed when the Gnolls open it. So when the Gnolls try to open again, he pulls it shut. And that allows them to be a little more planful as to how they work their way from the room. The Gnolls had lined themselves into 2 ranks on either side of the door, so they still had to breach the room to really get in there. There weren't any shots, really good angles for very many ranged attacks. But in kind of groups of 2 and 3, the party managed to go in and slowly whittle them down. So good use of tactics. It was a very good couple of sessions with this group. So we're nearing the end of the Caves of Chaos. And the other thing that's happening for anybody who may have forgotten is that their mission they've got 2 missions they've been given. Find what happened to all this gunpowder, and also these kobolds were pressed into service because the cult had kidnapped their queen. They deduced from interrogating people that if they can find where the cultists are, they'll find wherever the kobold queen is being held captive, and the kobolds will go back to their home. So we'll see if they discover that, or if they discover something else next time. They've still got a little bit of ways to go. I don't think we're still 2 or 3 sessions out from the whole Caves of Chaos, but we'll see what happens. And then I've got more planned for after that if people want to continue. But that's it from the Mythic World of Urd. I've also continued to play in 2 different games of Pathfinder 2nd Edition. The first is run by Carl Rodriguez, who hosts the Geomologist Presents podcast and is also a frequent co-panelist with me on the Cerebrivore podcast. We have been playing through Abomination Vaults. I think he said last time we left off we're maybe a little over halfway through the first book. We've been trying to turn off this gauntlet, this old ancient arcane tower that shoots a beam of light into the nearby village and wreaks havoc and is tied to sort of past conflict and atrocities. We went to the ruins of the fortress where the gauntlet was kept and cleaned it out, but once we ascended the tower we found there was no way to turn it off, so now we're down in the level below the ruins, and we've encountered these creatures who call themselves Morlocks, or these sort of misshapen humanoid things. There appears to be several different casts of them, and we've uncovered, we killed a few just because we kind of got into a skirmish with them when we first came down into the level, and then their leader, once he realized we were could handle ourselves, tried to then barter with us and strike a deal and promise to show us things we were looking for. But as we were, he wanted the head of this water drake that nested near their thing. Unbeknownst to him, we had encountered it when we were still up on the surface and killed it. So we were like, oh yeah, we can kill that for you, wink, wink. And decided to head back to town and get the head, because we had taken its body with us back to town as a trophy to see if we could harvest organs or the hide or anything for anything useful. But we got the head and brought it back. But when we came back and were further kind of poking around in the Morlocks area, we figured out there are several casts of these things, and one group said, you don't trust the leader. They're the engineers, they build things. Don't trust our leader, he's going to betray you. So we gave them the head so they could use it to build a construct. I think they were going to have it be part of some kind of a catapult or ballista or engine of war that they wanted to build. And we continued to explore the area around which the Morlocks occupy. We discovered some undead. My character, Dr. Eleazar, accidentally tripped an encounter with a shade and was almost drained of his life, but he was able to get out of there, and then the tougher types came in and finished it off. Also accidentally activated some brown mold in another part of the dungeon, so I'm going to have to quit walking ahead of everybody else when I get impatient, I guess. We encountered an undead Minotaur skeleton, and our archer of the group, Goblin de la Hood, played by Jason Connerly, did very well in that fight. I think he rolled 2 crits with his bow and took it out almost by himself. We encountered a lesser devil that had been bound to basically serve as the janitor ages ago by the witch queen that had ruled over this place. We fought with it and sort of pleaded for its existence as we were about to kill it, and then was able to tell us that what we were looking for was really on the level below. We had found a room where it seemed like the gauntlet that's in the tower above kind of came through the ceiling and down into the floor of this room, so there was nothing apparent in there that could have we could have used to turn it off or on. There's a shriveled purple worm. We aren't really sure if the purple worm came into contact with the light and killed it, or somehow related to why it's been reactivated, but we do know we need to go down. We've also found out from the Morlocks that the level below them is full of ghouls, so we're anticipating fighting with ghouls and maybe other undead when we go down. We didn't quite finish exploring this level. We found a couple of ways to go down to the level below, but we wanted to finish out this level. And probably one of the most interesting things we found was a room full of dioramas. And when we went in, one of them actually began to shoot. It had a little miniature model of the witch, the gauntlet, that started to shoot laser beams or death beams at us. And our paladin went down, and we had to drag him. I didn't. I hit another alcove, but other people dragged him out, and we closed the door behind us. And then Goblin snuck back in and deactivated it. He was able to ascertain kind of a mechanism for turning it off. And so, but we're not sure how it got activated. It was I thought it was kind of interesting that each diorama depicted a city or town befalling some sort of great horrific cataclysm. But the one that seemed to replicate the gauntlet destroying a town by beaming undead onto it, which is exactly what happened to the town nearby us, was the one that was active when we went in. So maybe there's some sort of connection we still got to find. There's a double set of doors at the other end of this room that we've got to go in, and that's where we left off. So we're hoping that the next time we come back, we can clear out the last little bit of this layer beneath the surface, and then go down one more layer to the ghouls, and hopefully find a way to deactivate the gauntlet for good. We also encountered the spirit of a rogue who was one of the legendary heroes that sort of defeated this thing the first time, and it was basically ectoplasm. That's all that was left of him, and it basically splattered itself on the wall and spelled out "I am," whatever the guy's name was, I don't remember it, and then led us to one of the staircases that would take us down to the next level, and then it dissipated. So it was kind of it kind of reminded me of the first season of Stranger Things, where Will is using Christmas lights to communicate to his mom on the other side. But anyway, that's where we left off with Age of Ashes, or not Age of Ashes. Age of Ashes is the other Pathfinder. That's where we left off with the Abomination Vaults. Just having a good time with this game, and looking forward to coming back and playing the next round of it. The other Pathfinder game that I'm playing in is Age of Ashes, and we've made it through the first book of that, but we've lost half the party in the process. Actually, yeah, we've lost half the party in the process to the, I guess, which is supposed to be the final boss, which is this Barghest, who's in the cavern, which is kind of the only way to get to this ring of teleportation gates that is sort of the ending of the first book. And we failed to notice the first time we successfully made it past them. There's a staircase going up, and I guess it never clicked to us that if we just cleared out that staircase, we could bypass him. So we got past him and lost one party member, and then on the attempt to get past him, just to get by him, not really confront and defeat him, to get by him, to get back outside, we lost a second party member. And then we came back and almost had another TPK because it seemed like that was the only route to get past him, and basically to avoid all of us dying. The last man standing had to promise not all the parties, but at least all of my characters' magic items to the Barghest, because the last time we had confronted him and barely got away. He has a little altar set up to himself where he's got like skeletons of the people he's killed propped up, and when he was not relenting from the rest of the party, I managed to go over and start wrecking it. My character, Elmer, who is a dwarven alchemist, and then so he had a special mat on for me, so he targeted me first when we went back and almost killed me. And but so what we did is we went back to town, took about several weeks of downtime to earn some money and to hire a crew of people to go excavate that staircase, so that we don't have to deal with him. And then we also sealed up the passage that we had been using between the Barghest lair and this ring of gates. So now we're trying to figure out how to work the ring of gates. We were able to figure out one gate that took us all the way to Mwangi, another part of the Pathfinder setting, into the realm of these sort of isolationist elves. And of course, we explained to them we didn't mean to intrude on their territory. We were just trying to figure out where the gate went. They said we've been supposed to guard this gate from anyone coming through. There was some sort of fight with a dragon or some sort of cult or group that kind of served dragons. When we came through the gate, we walked through a passage and encountered I don't think it was a dragon. It was sort of it was almost like a fire elemental that took the form of a dragon. And so these elves are very upset. They feel like they failed because the portal is open. So we're going to talk to their leaders to try to assess fully what's going on and try to put things back right. And that's where we left off with the beginning of the second book in the Age of Ashes for Pathfinder 2e.
Hey BJ, Daniel from Bandit, keep calling in. Oh, I'm sorry about the audio quality in that first message. And the last time I called in, I did not realize. Perhaps I should listen back. I think it's these headphones. But anyways, that's 10 seconds wasted. When we're mapping online, because like you, we play a lot online, I have one person do it. If it's a Mega Dungeon type campaign, what I would do is at the end of each session, they would put it into a Facebook group that we shared so other people could look at it. And also some people could take turns mapping. So if they weren't there, right, because it wasn't always the same person mapping. As far as like if people want to look at it, I just like you would if you were looking at a map on your phone and somebody was like, did we just pass that street? The other person would say, oh no, that's back there. They just in character describe as if they're looking at their map. And if they do want to show it exactly, they would just share the document. But generally speaking, they just say it. You know, when somebody's like, we have to go back 3 rooms to get to that place, they might say, oh no, that was 2 rooms back, you know, because they have the map. What I well, that's a weird way to say it. What I generally recommend people doing is if we're going to have again, if it's important to have a map, then one person should be the mapper. And then everybody else should just be on a piece of scratch paper, just making a quick notes as they're traveling through the dungeon. You know, everybody should have some kind of because if the person is the mapper, and this actually happened to me in a mega dungeon we were in, they got incinerated. They fell into, or I think they fell in a pool of acid. And yeah, I said, destroy the map. You know, they had the map, so nobody else has a map, you know. So that's the reason why, again, we put it back into the Facebook group so that each week, like that map at that status, will say they had got back to home base and they, you know, made a copy of it or whatever. But any new mapping was gone because that person that had the map was gone. So I like to play it like the map is a real thing and not a battlefield. Somebody actually physically has that map. And of course, they can't be holding, you know, a 2-handed sword. We got interrupted there. I'm working on some construction and the compressor turned on. Anyways, they can't be holding a 2-handed sword or have like a sword and board or something. And they've got to have a hand free to map, at least one hand, if not 2 hands. So typically the magic user will do it right there in the middle of the party. They'll usually, and they're not holding weapons all the time because they want their hands free anyways. And I allow them to just like tuck the map under their robe and cast a spell without worrying too much about, you know, that basically their hands are free. So usually it's the magic user that's mapping. And, you know, again, I prefer that the character playing the magic user is the one that maps, although I'm okay with having whatever player likes mapping. Whatever player likes mapping. But that character of the magic user, let's say, has the map.
Hey, Daniel, I think those are very good. It's a very good approach to mapping. That makes a lot of intuitive sense. Especially the magic user would probably be doing it because you assume they're the most, they have free hands because they're not poking around for traps and stuff. But also they would typically be the most educated or intellectual of the in classic D&E. Be more likely to have, know how to use ink and pen and to draw straight lines and diagrams and things, which would make them more natural choices to serve as kind of a cartographer or map maker. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Although, you wouldn't want to force that if players wanted to play it differently, but yeah, it's a good idea. But yeah, I like that, the guy carrying the map gets killed, and they can't recover what he was carrying, and you don't have a map, you're just going to have to rely on your memory off the top of your head. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I'm kind of going back and forth right now. The VTTs sort of eliminate the need for mapping on some degree. So, but you've kind of lost part of the challenge of old school dungeon crawling when you do that. But it's kind of hard to I don't know. I guess you could just not show the map and have everybody do it, and then if you're on Zoom or whatever, the mapper can always hold their map up to the camera and let everybody see what they've drawn. But anyway, I appreciate your thoughts, and you kind of, I know I'd asked you to explain a little more about how you handle it, so I will take all those things under advisement as I continue to think about how I want to do things.
So you're talking about shooting missile weapons into a melee. What I've done and what I do in BX as a house rule, basically, because it is house rule at that, is that if somebody is in your way, so kind of like what you're talking about, if there's a clear path, it's not a problem, right? And I would say a halfling standing in front of you is a clear path if you're tall enough. But if there's a clear path in front of you, then you can shoot no problem. If not, then I give the opponent, the person you're shooting at, that is, cover, either partial cover or full cover. And of course, then you have the penalty to shoot. And if you miss because of the cover, then you hit your friend. I don't make a second roll or anything. So in other words, if they have full cover because a big fighter's in front of this goblin and you're -4 to hit, if you miss by 4, then yeah, you hit the fighter in the back and he's not going to be happy. Okay, I think I may not have explained that properly, so let me just say it again. So basically, they've got cover, right? If they miss because of the cover, it hits the friendly. So not if they miss, period. Like if they would have missed anyways, then it's fine. So if somebody has AC, let's say you needed a 15 to hit them normally, and you rolled a 2, well, that's fine. You would miss them. You wouldn't hit anybody. That's just a terrible shot, right? But if now you need a 19 because there's cover there, and you roll a 15, 16, 17, or 18, then you hit your friend. That's basically how I handle it. It's not. It rarely comes up, to be honest, because my players try to maneuver around it and don't use missile weapons if they think it's going to be a problem most of the time. Though I have had a couple people shoot another player character in the back, and they get given crap about it constantly from that point on. So that's probably why they don't do it anymore.
Daniel, I don't think I have anything to add to that. I think that's probably the best solution right there. That, yeah, if you have a clear line of sight, just shoot. If the person in front of you is significantly shorter than you, that's fine. But then otherwise, yeah, I like that rule of, if you miss, then only by the margin of the cover, provided by the person standing in the way, you might hit the person in the way. That's a really simple way, straightforward way to do it. So I think that might be what I go with. Thanks for the advice. All right, that's the episode. I want to thank Daniel Norton for his calls. Always good to hear from him. I think next week's Cerebrivore will feature Daniel will be on the panel with me and Jason, so be sure and check that out when it comes out next Friday. And otherwise, I appreciate you listening to this episode. I know it's been a few weeks since I put one out. Hopefully I'll get back to doing it with a little more regularity. Anyway, take care out there. Thanks for listening to the Arcane Alienist podcast. The music you're hearing is Come and Get It by Scott Holmes Music. The cover art I use for the episodes is by Dave Bone. Be sure and check out his website, ironseer.com, for a lot of other great gaming-related content. You can always leave me a voice message through the Anchor app or at the Anchor website, or you can email me at arcane.alienist@gmail.com. Once again, I appreciate you listening. Thanks so much.